Hey baking friends, we're here in the kitchen today making royal icing floral cookies. We're gonna learn how to make these beautiful cookies today, and you won't believe how simple it is. If you want a deeper dive into decorating cookies, look at my on-demand class in the bio below. All right, we have our cookies ready to go, and we are gonna start decorating them. So I'm gonna grab my square cookie. You can see it's nice and flat on top, nice even edges. And I'm gonna start flooding with my light green here. I'm gonna cut the tip off and give it a little try up in the corner. Make sure it's gonna come out straight for us. That looks great. I'm gonna go ahead and outline around the edges. So just putting a little pressure and then stopping once I get towards the edge. I'm gonna move the cookie so I don't have to move myself. And I'm still leaving a little room on the outside of the cookie, so if this does start to move a little bit towards the edge, it's not going to go over. All right, so I got everything outlined here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and fill in. So I'm just gonna go up and down, putting a little more pressure on the bag so I'm getting a little more icing out here. And when you start doing these wet on wet flooding techniques, you want to make sure that you have an idea of what you're going to do in mind. So I'm going to be making a pansy cookie. So I'm flooding with this light green, and then I'm going to make some circles with some purple and white, and then use my toothpick to make some designs so that it looks more like a flower. And now we're ready for our purple circles, and you can make them as big or as small as you want. I'll do a couple big ones and then a couple small ones. You can have some going over the edge, using my other hand to kind of steady me along. Then I'm gonna go ahead and do a white circle inside that purple circle. And just right inside that other circle. They don't have to be perfect because we're gonna be running the toothpick through them. So you just wanna get a little bit of the white in between that green and purple. And now we get to do the fun design. So I'm gonna take my toothpick and we're gonna do 5 swipes through. So I'm gonna come down one side, go to the center, and then lift through. Wipe that off, do the same thing over here. And then we'll do 3 more around the bottom. And you can see that our circles have now taken on the shape of a flower. And I'm gonna continue doing that with all of them. And you want to do this before your icing sets. So you want to, again, have an idea of what you're going to do in your head, the colors that you want to use, and then go right into it. All right, now we're ready for our little dot in the center with our yellow. All right, that's it. So I have a bunch of different colors, and the nice thing about this is you can kind of mix and match to whatever colors speak to you when you are making your flowers. I'm gonna set these to the side so that they can dry completely, and we're gonna move on to another cookie. For our second cookie, we're gonna use that same wet on wet technique, but we're gonna make a wreath. So I'm gonna take my round cookie and my white flooding icing. I'm gonna make a border around my cookie. So holding my other hand steady as I go around. Once I've made that border, I'm gonna fill in. We're gonna use that toothpick to bring that white to the edges, so it's nice and smooth. This is also, if your circle isn't as round as you would like it to be, you can use your toothpick just to help it out to the edges a little bit. If it doesn't look completely even, you can give it a little shake and a little tap, and that will help flatten it out. And now we're ready to start the wreath. We are going to make 12 kind of dashes along the outside of our cookie, almost like the face of a clock. Right? And then I'm gonna take my darker green icing and do the same thing in between those light green stripes. Just make sure this is ready to go for us. And then I'm gonna take that toothpick and start at 12 o'clock, and we're gonna go around. And I like to go around a couple times just to get them nice and swirled together. Then we have a beautiful wreath. All right, I'm gonna show you a second technique that will give you something similar, but just a little bit different for your wreath. So this time we're gonna start with those same kind of dashes all the way around like the face of a clock. And then instead of doing lines with our darker green, I'm gonna make little dots, just to make the pattern a little different than the first one. But we're gonna use that same technique with the toothpick, starting at 12 o'clock and running down through, and then go around 1 or 2 more times just to make sure everything is nice and swirled. And that's it. So depending on how many cookies you're making, you'll want to do that base flooding and that toothpick work to get everything done for your wreath. We're going to let them dry completely, and then we'll come back and make some beautiful flowers on top. So I've taken the icing we've used earlier and added a good amount of confectioner's sugar to it to get it to a really nice stiff consistency, almost like a buttercream that you would use to frost a cake. So it's really nice and stiff and will hold a peak when we actually pipe our flowers. All right, so I'm just gonna grab one of my wreath cookies. Again, this is completely dry, so even as we get close to the icing, we won't make a dent in it as we're actually working with our piping bag towards it. So as we get into making these flowers, I want them all to look a little bit different. And so I'm using a variety of tips. This is kind of a closed star tip that we'll use to make some roses. I also have an open star tip that gives you just a little bit of a different shape. For my light pink icing, I have just a plain small round tip that we'll use to do little dots on our wreath. Okay, to start, I'm gonna go ahead and pipe some roses around on my wreath here. So I'm gonna start closest to me. I'm gonna hold my bag straight up over, kind of perpendicular to my cookie. And I'm gonna get close but not actually touch it. So I'm gonna squeeze a little bit, and as it starts to come out, I'm just gonna rotate my arm around. So pressure up and around like you're making that @ sign, stopping pressure and pulling through to really round that back toward the center. And you can really see how that stiffer icing really brings the cookie, kind of brings those roses out. So they're really popping off your cookie, kind of that 3D effect. Let's try a different one and use all of our tips this time. So I'm just gonna choose another one here. And that's it. Now that we're done decorating, we're gonna set these aside. They'll dry completely, and then we get to enjoy our beautiful work. Our cookies are all done. They look beautiful, they're completely dry, and now it's time to enjoy them. I know it's really hard to eat something that looks so beautiful, but I promise they're super delicious, and you're definitely gonna wanna eat them. Thanks for watching, and go ahead and bake someone's day.